Yo, what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. It's your Cape Crusader Cody, and we're keeping it geekly with our two new guests. We have Schiek and Leland Bjerg. We're here to break down Hush Ronin, issue 1 and 2, and everything in between. I had a chance to check out some of these preview pages over on Global Comics, and this story was phenomenal. Leland, I know you came in a little late, but we were gushing backstage just over how good this lettering looked. These interiors are gorgeous, and this story is just phenomenal. Before we dive into this, guys, I always like starting off with the basics of who you two are and how you got into creating comics. So, Jay, let's go ahead and we'll start with you first.
Yeah, I'm Schiek. I got into creating comics very early. Actually, I just found my first comic the other day. I think I was maybe 5 or 6, and I took some binder paper, folded it in half, stapled it down the middle, and then festooned every page with all the Batman and Superman stickers I could find around the house, because at the time I couldn't draw for crap. But that's kind of what got me into it as a kid, was using construction paper to make the kinds of comics that I wanted to read, like my own heroes and things. And I don't know, I kind of fell in love with the medium after kind of falling in love with the collectability of it early on, from that Simpsons episode where Bart and Milhouse and Martin are going for the Radioactive Man #1 issue. But by the time I kind of achieved the Radioactive Man #1 in my collection, I'd fallen in love with comics, and it's just been in that direction since.
That's awesome. Leland, what about you?
Yeah, I always loved comics, always clicked with comics. It's definitely it's a frequency that harmonizes with my brain. So yeah, for me, I was reading Ninja Turtles and Calvin and Hobbes and everything I could get my hands on at my local small town corner store in rural British Columbia. So like, we got 7 books, I can name most of them: the Archie Ninja Turtles, New Warriors, Excalibur. Yeah. We got one Spider-Man, which was tough during events like Maximum Carnage, where they're doing they're going across the 4 different Spider-Mans that are published at the time. Loved comics as a kid. And in my case, my parents were avid readers and, with a sort of literary bent. And I got really strongly discouraged to stop being interested in comics. And just went along with it. And then as an adult, rediscovered comics about 10 years ago, and had been telling stories in all kinds of different mediums, making music, writing screenplays, writing fiction, and coming back to comics was just like, oh, this is the medium that I can do something awesome in. And
that's so awesome.
Going hard on comics since I reconnected and realized this was the spot I wanted to be.
That is so awesome. And go ahead.
Oh, did you have the Archie spinner rack at that grocery store?
We didn't even have a spinner rack, man.
I
was just saying,
just one shelf.
It's always nice.
Rack, the other convenience store down the highway, they did have the spinner rack full of comics. Yeah.
It's always nice when you get back into it when you're an adult, because you can afford all this, right? I mean, it's almost like a catch-22, because then you can afford all of it, and you end up walking out with like a crap load at that point.
Yeah.
So real quick,
I made up for lost time.
We have Mama Geekly in chat. Thank you for joining us so early, and she has a good question for you guys. So before we dive into some of your guys' works, she wants to know if you have any favorite authors that you like Stephen King or maybe James Grisham.
I love Stephen King personally, but favorite author, I don't know, you want to go first with him?
Sure. I mean, I got a list. I love Cormac McCarthy and all of his grim Western, almost biblical verbosity. I've been on a real James Baldwin kick lately. That's a dude who doesn't get talked about enough. He's got an incredible library of books. Yeah, that's kind of there's my 2.
I'll second you on Cormac McCarthy. Blood Meridian messed me up for weeks.
That book, holy, yeah.
But
that book is like doing drugs.
It's like a Rick Steves guide to hell. The
The judge is
Road
on my easily top five villains of all time. Right,
Yeah.
the judge from Blood Meridian is the
Mhm.
scariest, most monstrous villain.
It's terrifying. And just everything about that book is just. The Road was great too. That was the first one of his that I read, and I just adored it. That the father-son relationship. I didn't have a son then, and it's like it still made me understand it even then, and I can confirm it now that I have a son. That it's like each one was the other's world entire, I think is how McCarthy puts it. My other favorite author, I'm going to give a plug to a fellow Cal State Fullerton alumnus, Tim Powers. And if you've seen the fourth Pirates of the Caribbean movie, On Stranger Tides, it was very, very loosely based on a novel of his called On Stranger Tides about Blackbeard and voodoo magic. My favorite of his books, though, is The Anubis Gates. And I bring that one up because I always read it on vacation every year, and I'm coming up on that point again where I get to reread it. Really amazing, very tightly plotted and tied together time travel novel. Tim Powers will get my favorite author of the night vote, but I read a lot of Lee Child, Michael Connolly for those kind of fun candy crime kind of reads. I'm a little bit all over the place.
You got Mama Geekly in chat, super excited, saying, "Oh yes." Thank you for the great question, Mama Geekly. So, Jay, Leland, you guys have some awesome titles behind you. Jay, we got you down for Hallowed North, Astronaut Ninja, and then of course Hush Ronin. Go ahead and give us a little bit about some of those titles. We actually had Hallowed North. We had that on the show. And we kind of broke down issue 1, so that's a little close to home right there.
Yeah, Hallowed North with Jeremiah Espinoza. That's been a fun one to work on. I haven't been in contact with him too much yet about issue 3, but I know that one's coming, and I think he's restructuring it a little bit. But we finished issue 2 in the toward the end of last year, Jeremiah had approached me. It feels weird saying that since that's my name also. That's why I go by Jay. Sometimes it makes it easier. Anyway, he had a horror story that sort of personified a lot of the facets of bipolar disorder, and kind of shed a light on mental illness as subject matter, and in I don't say an informative light, but just kind of using the horror story as an analogy to let people know what depression looks like, what it can do, the sorts of the monstrous appearance that it can have, or that presence that it can take in your life. And bipolar disorder is something that has been, let's say, a big part of my upbringing, and been very much in my sphere my whole life, as something I was tentatively diagnosed with, but also something that one of my parents has. And I'm a major advocate for normalizing it, but not demonizing it. Because it's one of those things that can affect people really, really badly. And it was an honor and a pleasure to be a part of that one. Astronaut Ninja is a strange. That was my first webcomic from way back. I had started it as a series of beer labels for a friend when I was working the Genius Bar at Apple, and we had all these ideas for an astronaut ninja with a warlock ninja brother. And around 2016, I decided I was going to launch this thing as a webcomic, and this is right before the iPad Pro came out. So I was drawing all of the pages on blue line artboards. I'd scan them into Photoshop, and then I'd take the scans onto my iPad 2, the old school one from 2011, and I'd use my little rubber tip stylus to dutifully and very poorly ink and color the pages. And it took me a week just to get one page done. So the webcomic folded before it really got going. But that's one of those I've already started redoing a few pages to try and get that idea going once Hush Ronin wraps.
Well, that is awesome. And it's one of those things too where trial by error, right? You got to put that blood, sweat, and tears in to kind of get used to the work grind. So awesome.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome chance to kind of relive some of those titles. Thank you for that. Leland, you as well. We have you down for Capsules, Berserker, Monk, and Red Planet, just to kind of name a few. Give us a little bit about some of those titles as well.
Well, yeah, so Capsules, that's my mental health book. I lived with a partner with PTSD for years, and yeah, that, you know, I definitely had people with mental health problems in my family, and had experience with that. But if you don't live, if you don't live with it, you really don't understand the struggles that people with some, you know, it's like your brain betraying you is kind of the way that I thought about it. And yeah, when my partner got sick from working in an emergency room, I didn't have a blueprint for how to be a good caregiver, how to, you know, what's the appropriate way to support someone, when is it okay to push back, right? It's like, you know, when do I just need to listen? It's like, it's I you know, I felt like I wasn't ready, and so yeah, Capsules is about a couple trapped in an escape pod, and one of them's got PTSD, and one of them's trying to keep their partner safe and keep the ship running, and you know, keep the void outside their tiny little world from spilling in.
Damn, dude, that is powerful.
Oh, yeah, thanks.
Good.
Yeah, that is powerful.
Is perfect.
Love
that.
Yeah,
book.
so yeah, that was just that book was just kind of, you know, finding a setting that was appropriate, but had enough distance where I could kind of go through that stuff. So yeah, me and the team, Casey, and we brought on a colorist who I've worked with before, Camilla Sims. We're working on 2, and yeah, I'm excited to keep telling that story. And then yeah, on the flip side, Berserker Monk, that's just comics fun. That's definitely, I feel like that's my astronaut ninja. You know, about this juxtaposition of this martial arts master that can punch holes in things, and you know, I was like, you know, I'm a big Quentin Tarantino fan, so I wanted to, you know, it's like my elevator pitch for it is, it's like The Last Airbender meets Quentin Tarantino. So a little bit of fragmented storytelling, lots of blood. I teamed up with my buddy Josh Thompson, who's also from the same area there where I live, and yeah, we had an absolute blast making it, and had a good little Kickstarter for it last year. So that was fantastic. And then yeah, Red Planet, that was a Platforms Comics finalist. That was really fun. That was one of those the Platform 10K challenge where you have to make a comic in a week. So they send you a prompt and a line of dialogue, and then you know, and so yeah, I made that with my whole team in the Okanagan, like mutual collaborator of mine and Jeremiah's, JL Collins worked on that. Josh worked on that. Matthew Sen, who, shout out to Matthew, he's got a Kickstarter for his book Poppy running right now. Go on Kickstarter and back Poppy. It's a really cool throwback comic. Yeah, that's where that one came in. And yeah, I'm always trying to pump out sci-fi shorts and, you know, tell complete little stories. I think that's a great discipline to have if you want to get into comics and make comics. Everybody wants to tell an epic, but if you can tell a good story in 8 pages, you can tell an epic, and you can get a bunch of practice making shorts.
Monks, you definitely don't want to mess with them. I seen this video of one monk. He was like doing a push-up and then dipping his finger in a bowl of, there was 2 bowls of water. So he'd do a push-up and then dip his finger in 2 bowls of water and go back and do the push-up. And I'm like, dude, what? I can barely pump out like 20 of these things, let alone like that. Like, what is this?
I love the crazy Shaolin monk training where it's like, this is like half workout and half ritual.
Yeah.
And, I mean, like the Way of the Iron Fist guys, I don't know how well the Way of the Iron Fist works. I think you might just be breaking your hand, but yeah, those guys just like punch rocks and punch gravel and build up giant calluses on their knuckles. That's a whole
you don't want to get punched by those guys. I mean, whatever it is, like, they're good. No. Like, I don't want to mess with you. You stay over there, I'll stay over here. Like, we're cool. So speaking
sorry, I was gonna say I can't remember the name of them, but there's also historically there's this cadre of Japanese warrior monks. It kind of reminded me of that too. Not Shaolin from the Japanese side of things. I remember reading up on them a little bit.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's I mean, when you think of a monkey, you think of someone who's like at peace, like praying all the time, I guess, like not a lethal warrior, but like these dudes are just ruthless. Like, so we are here speaking of Japanese, we're here to talk about an interesting piece of Japanese culture, the Ronin warrior, Hush Ronin, issues 1 and 2. I had a chance to check out the preview on Global Comics. These interiors are gorgeous. This is a collaboration between you two. I mean, Jay, Leland, how did this come about? Like, how did you two end up meeting and crossing paths to create this comic?
We crossed paths a few times. It's been cool. Fate's really brought the two of us together.
Yeah, I think the first time we officially worked together was on Estate Sale for the Platform 10K a couple years ago. Unless it was prior to that, but I know that's our first.
I think it was Hallowed North because I did editing work on Hallowed North.
Oh,
I think that was the first. And then right around the same time, you connected with JL, and we did Estate Sale very shortly after that.
That's right. I forgot about the editorial stuff on Hallowed North. But yeah, we've kind of been back and forth, and I had reached a point. With Hush Ronin, my comics making process is calling it a process is probably being maybe a little too kind. I find it hard to sit down and write a script for myself, like trying to imagine in my head something that I'm later going to draw from description. So a lot of times my scripts end up being written descriptions of things that I've already drawn, where I'll actually kind of I'll write the story out as prose, so I have an idea of the characters, and it lets me explore them a little bit more fully than I necessarily can on a comics page. So, when you meet a character in Hush Ronin, while they may be only there for a page or two, I might have more backstory for them written down, so I can inform maybe their dress or the sword or weapon they carry, and I'll try to extrapolate that or find the essence of a certain part of the story and see how it fits a page, and then kind of use that as a springboard and kind of work from there. I'm starting to work more from a script, finishing issue 2 and then moving into issue 3, which I've already got the story is written, but the script itself is starting to form from that also. But yeah, trying to do all that, one person doing the art, the writing, and then thinking like, oh, I can do the lettering too, and I really can't. I hit, what was it? I can't. It was October, November last year, but I was in desperate need of a letterer, and Leland sprang immediately to mind. Just seeing his work on other things that we had done, the Thistle work, with J.L. Collins, Estate Sale, and his rates fit my budget, and I couldn't have been more pleased. I think we were saying backstage before this started, there are instances in the first issue and also in the second one, which nobody's seen yet but us, but it saved the comic. Having Leland on board was
thanks, man.
It gelled so well. I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, I often hear lettering is very, very critical part of the comic that a lot of people, good lettering, you're not really supposed to recognize, but bad lettering right away you could spot, right? So, that's an art within itself. How do you feel about that praise? That is some high praise, hearing that you pretty much single-handedly saved it.
Well, Jeremiah, what a gracious artist creator to, the fact that I'm in this interview is right. It says a lot about how amazing a collaborator Jay is. It was, and I feel like working with you is what really made me level up as a letterer. Like I got into lettering as a, out of, I knew I wanted to write comics. I knew I wasn't going to develop. I was not going to draw my own comics. I'm moderately artistically talented, but have not put in the work to, to be a great comic artist, man, you need to draw everything a million times. So I was like, okay, I'm going to learn as much as I can about comics. besides drawing. So I'm gonna learn. I learned to color. I'm an okay colorist, but I shouldn't be coloring comics. I figured that out. But lettering, I was like, yeah, I can do this. I'm the right kind of personality. I have an editor brain. I use this term. I have editor brain. I'm much better at culling ideas than generating them. I'm okay at generating ideas, but like my power is I'm bothered when things aren't working. And I think that's what makes me a good letterer, is I notice the little annoying details that, you know, I'm in the whatever, like, yeah, if I feel like like to be a good letterer, you need to be in the 0.1 percentile for being annoyed by small imperfections.
Yeah.
And if you're that, you know, if you're up there, then you're going to notice the little stuff, and the average the other 99.9% of people, they're not going to see the mistake. So yeah, that's why I think that's my main special sauce. But yeah, getting to work with Jeremiah and his style, which is you know, he tends to use softer brushes, and I'm always trying to make the lettering fit with the art, and working with him is just fun because it's an interesting challenge to try to get the lettering to sit nicely in the art and fit in with his style. And yeah, that's just been rewarding and fun. And I've you know, yeah, working with you is what's, if I'm a letterer worthy of working with you, it's because I've gotten to work with you.
I just love the compliments going back and forth. We were talking backstage, and I was talking about, there's this one scene in particular where Soji's like running through this fire smoke blackness, and you like lettered around the curvature of the sphere, and it was just so gorgeous. Yeah, right there, the way you did it was just so gorgeous.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Well, that was phenomenal. I was like, okay, those eyes, I got to work around those eyes. What's the...
So real quick, we got some chat going on over on Facebook. We have Michael Birch. I'm not into comics, but I support Cody, and I really enjoy listening to how your ideas came about and enjoying the stuff. There's a lot to comics I never could imagine. Even the lettering is so thought out. Where do you guys get your ideas, and what inspires the story? So I think that's a good segue for our next question. Jay, I mean, this story seems pretty intricate. We have a big focus on honor. We have a huge focus on the price of consequence. I mean, like, where did this idea begin for you?
Well, if I ever get the chance to tell the whole thing, I've got many drafts of Hush Ronin. In fact, the first time this was published back in 2019, I published the first issue through a very small press called Ashcan Comics Pub, and it came out as an Ashcan comic, and I fell apart before I could get issue 2 ready to print, and it was a completely different story back then. But it started with us. I was reading Usagi Yojimbo a lot. This is back in 2017, 2018. And I just happened to do a little sketch of what looked like a kind of a little chibi samurai, big circle for a head, like a Lego figure or like a Duplo or something like that. And I'd drawn him. He's cutting an apple in half with his katana. And when I came around to the mouth, I couldn't decide what the mouth shape should look like. It's like trying to paint a mouth on a chess pawn. And so I left it, finished painting it up and colored it. And then okay, the mouth still wasn't resolved. And then I decided, you know what? This guy doesn't have a mouth. And any other sketch, I probably would have left it at that. But the idea stuck with me that I'd left this character without a mouth, and a story started to form about a samurai character who enraged the gods or did something he shouldn't have. And so they took away his most powerful weapon, which in this case ends up being his mouth. And I started to write a story kind of centered around that idea, and then slowly that evolved. Then I had a mute samurai, and then eventually I have the story that it is now. And it was still kind of clinging to the original title that I'd come up with, because Hush Ronin came along, the title of it I had long before this draft came into existence. And I couldn't think of anything to retitle it, so I've more or less kept it the same, even though the story has changed drastically many times over.
I love that a lot. And you know, there's a part within the first couple pages where the dad tells the son, Shoji, hush. Like, and it felt like it was really implied. You know what I mean? Like, and then the fact that he his whole entire family and clan's wiped out. Like, he's now a Ronin. Like, it just felt like it was the perfect like piece together.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I've there's a couple of times where he's more or less told to shut up, especially when he's still kid.
So, and these interiors are really gorgeous as well. I mean, what does your routine look like when you come out with that? You do your prose and then you make your script from that. When you're laying down these interiors, what does that look like for you?
Pretty straightforward. I do a layer of pencils first. My pencils tend to be pretty detailed. If you're looking at a pencil page, it's a very good indication of what the inks will look like. Less the scratchy pencil textures, especially if I scribble in my spot blacking or something. Sometimes I'll sort of shorthand that and use the side of the pencil to shade. I work digitally, which lets me work really quickly. So everything I'm doing is on my iPad Pro. I've got a page in progress here. I'm working on one. This is also something Leland's connected with. I'm inking a page for Thistle with J.L. Collins. This is my pencil art. I'll turn the line art blue on any panel I start inking, so I don't miss anything. But yeah, I tend to I'm really big on composition. Just kind of like even from a photography sort of standpoint. I'm a big proponent for visual storytelling. I like a comic that can still convey the story, even if there weren't words to convey what's happening. At least you get a sense of what's going on, even if you don't get all the nuances of it. So I'm big on. I'll try a few different things as far as camera placement and where the figures are in the frame from foreground to background, and how I can center things to shift attention. And sometimes I'll later get to that in tones if the arrangement of the figures or the staging isn't enough on its own to convey an idea strongly enough.
I love how intricate you get with it too. I mean, I love hearing just how complex it can get, and it really shows too just how much work you put into this. Leland, when you approach a script to letter it, what's your process look like? Like how do you take it head on? I mean, because your lettering in this was phenomenal.
Thank you. Well, again, working with Jeremiah is great. Like the first thing, to grumble a little bit as a letterer, the first thing you bump into is the artist hasn't thought about the lettering as part of the composition. And so you enter into a panel and, a character's head is centered in the panel, instead of thinking, well, like, oh, this character's gonna have two balloons, right? So their head's one circle and there's, two other circles need to occupy this space. Has the artist thought about those composition basics, and just use the rule of thirds so that, the speaker's head is in one place and then the balloons can fit nicely around them. And so, yeah, it's looking at the dialogue you're given, looking at the compositions you've been given, and with Jeremiah, like I'm lettering Hush Ronin 2 right now, and it's such a kick-ass book, and it looks so good. It's just like, okay, how do I not mess this up? How do I move through this? How do I move through this space deftly? How do I help the artist lead the reader's eye on a nice path, a nice trip through this page that feels intuitive, where they're not going to be reading stuff out of order, where you're thinking about the order of events, because sometimes, as much as every panel is a moment, sometimes you can sneak two moments or a flow into one panel where, you're looking at a character's face first and seeing their emotion, and then you're looking at the sword they're swinging and seeing what they're doing. So you're actually kind of getting some time bleeding across a panel, and it's like, how can I lean into that and help with that, and put the first piece of dialogue by the first moment in the panel, and the next piece of dialogue or the next piece of lettering by the next moment in the panel, so that it reads the way that the time is moving. I mean, that's the way that I try to nerd out about it, and yeah, picking the right brushes, picking the right fonts that convey the emotion, the texture, the sound, all that's, it's like, I mean, I think any art form, there's 10,000 decisions, right? You're saying yes or no, to, like, I I always this says something about how big a nerd I am. I always make computer analogies, but like, I always think like computer code is all yeses and nos. It's all ones and zeros, right? You can represent anything with enough yeses and nos, just the way you can, I mean, all Jay's art is digital, right? It's all done. It's all ones and zeros. And that's what any artist is doing, is saying yes and no to 10,000 decisions, most of which you're doing subconsciously. But in comics, I just feel so aware of it, maybe because so many things are encapsulated, right? Panels, dialogue, pages, you have all these units that you're managing and adjusting relative to one another. And just like, I want to make the right decision I want to bat 10,000 out of 10,000 with all those decisions.
I appreciate you getting nerdy with us, because I love hearing just how the process, like, like Michael was saying in chat, like just hearing just how much thought and work and precision goes into lettering is just it's mesmerizing. We have Mike saying, where can I buy this comic? I'm interested. Another perfect segue, guys. We have the link for the pre-order for issue 2 right here, so feel free to check it out. This is when's this dropping? So this is in pre-orders right now, but when can they expect this to hit shelves?
August 30th.
Okay, cool.
If it doesn't hit Global Comics before, then the physical copies will be on shelves on August 30th.
So right there is the pre-order.
The second issue is 58 pages. I think the previews has it at 48 or 54. That's another part of my process that needs some refinement. Is I find that trying to draw a single issue is a bit like trying to parallel park a triple trailer semi-truck. I can get pretty close. But since I don't necessarily work from a traditional script where it's all, at least up until the end of this one, where it was scripted down to that 58th page, and I've stuck to that.
It always looks like a professional script when you send it to me.
Yeah.
You get it all put together by the time it comes to me.
I'd be sitting in the semi truck like I don't even know what the hell I'm doing right now.
My fingers are bleeding from all the typing that I'm doing. I gotta do that. And a lot of what I send script wise, very often I'm just looking back at the page I've already drawn and just typing up panel descriptions of what's there. So the more detailed my verbiage is, that's a good indication that I've already drawn the page. If it says like, the characters have left the frame looking like this or that, I try to put those. Even if I'm writing a script, I know I'm going to draw. I write it in such a way that if somebody else had to draw it, they wouldn't be left out in the cold. And I also do that because I don't always trust my memory on things. I might have like a mental note to file that, hey, I'm going to do this when I get to this page, but a million things are going to interrupt me before I get there. And then I get to that page, and whatever that idea was, if I don't have it jotted down, it's like, it's lost in the ether. I was going to say though, in regard, Leland had a beautiful answer on that with the lettering and creating that sense of flow and a nice journey for the reader through a page and thus through the book. And I don't have it to show you at the moment. I'm just going to reference it because I think it's the only 9-panel grid in issue 2. But there's a 9-panel grid in there that, I mean, it carries a lot of storytelling weight to the story, because it's accomplishing a really key thing happens on that page. And if you're familiar with 9-panel grids, all the panels are pretty small. They're all the same size. So apart from that center 5th panel, there's not always a lot of way to to center something or give it a lot of weight. And with that, I was feeling, I'd say, a little less than confident in it. And for anybody who's interested in the book, and when you see the book and you get to this 9-panel grid, remember what I'm saying here. But Leland's lettering on that page in particular, to say nothing of the wonderful things he's done to the rest of the book, but that particular page, the lettering unifies everything just so beautifully.
That's awesome.
I don't know. I don't think it could exist independent of that lettering and still work.
So I'm curious, Leland, what was your thoughts when I'm assuming you know what page he's talking about. What was your thoughts when you first seen that and had to tackle it?
You know what? I can't even remember it right now. I could think of a 9-panel page grid that I worked on from an early draft that I think you discarded. That's the one that's popping into my head. It's not going to be in the final version of the book.
It would have been 2. The other one felt like laziness to me. It was a single image broken up into nine panels.
Yes,
so that
yes,
I could
that's right.
the dialogue, and I'm like, Tom King's got that covered. I'm good.
So we kind of talked a lot about what went into this, the type of work, the techniques. What is Hush Ronin about? Give us a little bit about the story that we're here talking about.
I like to think of Hush Ronin as a story about stories. It's kind of got the magic realism. It's a fantasy epic sort of centered, or at least the stone that makes the stone soup is a samurai story. But in the second issue, you'll get a taste of kind of where it's going when the first half of the issue takes you into a bit of an origin story in ancient Mesopotamia and a retelling of the Gilgamesh epic. Issue 3 will kind of pull us into Arthurian legend a little bit, but you essentially got this character who comes into possession of this reliquary stone that's, I'd say, enigmatic at best in the first issue. You don't know exactly what it does until we start to get to the end, and you realize that it's connected to a second, this relic sword.
Ooh.
And the sword itself is sheathed, and the emphasis that the characters are giving is that unsheathing this sword without having this stone in one's possession would unleash kind of a cataclysmic event. I don't want to be too spoilery on this because there is actually a fairly scientific reason why the sword is as dangerous as they're making it out to be, and a fairly magical answer as to why somebody with the stone would be safe. But there, suffice to say, it's if you think of like the Ark of the Covenant from even from Raiders of the Lost Ark, but from the biblical stories of Exodus and all of that, and the idea of this artifact having extreme power to it, then entering into its presence could kill you if you enter into it in an unworthy way. And the sword is very much like that. So possessing both sword and stone, the person is okay. Possessing the sword alone, fairly dangerous. The stone on its own, fairly innocuous. But the two together and in the wrong hands could be utterly disastrous. And that's kind of what the second issue will sort of, I would say, hammer home, but it explains as to why. So it's not just like a J.J. Abrams mystery box with the sword.
Okay.
And the idea is that this sword that kind of has its origins in the ancient Middle East is also possibly, probably, absolutely Excalibur, or Skraeling from Beowulf, or legendary swords that crop up and vanish into the mythological record, if not the historical. And that's kind of the idea of it, is this sword has had a very long history and very long migration to make it to Japan. And it has its, like Sauron seeking after the One Ring, you've got this sort of titular evil character who's been seeking this lost power since the moment she lost it.
Awesome. So outside of Hush Ronin 2, what's next for you guys? I mean, we have still like about half the year left in 2023. What other titles are coming out for you two?
Big one for me is One True Love, which is on Kickstarter right now. We've got 13 days left. 90-page crime noir graphic novel. If you're a Tarantino fan, especially of, say, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it's set in late 1960s Los Angeles with a couple of characters who have just heisted the heisters, and they're laying low on the West Coast, trying to live the California dream and ease into things, and finding that when you're hanging out with thieves, nobody can really be trusted. So there's a lot of twists and betrayals.
Right, there's the link to that, guys. Oh, sorry.
what? Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. But yeah, Mario Candelaria is the writer on this one. I know it's his baby as far as the script goes. One that we've been wanting to put together and work on now for going on 3 years. It's been a bit, and I've done a bit of work on it already, which you can see on the campaign page.
Right there is that link to check it out. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Black and white art like Ronin.
And right there is that link too, guys. If you're unable to back, simply putting this on Facebook and Twitter is 100% free. Word of mouth costs you nothing to do. Feel free to share that link to Hush Ronin too as well and make it happen. Leland, what about you? I mean, you hinted towards issue 2 of Capsules.
Yeah, Capsules 2 is the big project. I'm really excited for this one. Issue 1 sort of focuses on the caregiver character, Jericho, and sort of his judgmentalness and his lack of understanding and him having a breakthrough about his partner's PTSD. Issue 2 focuses on Anna, the character with PTSD, and her, putting the reader more in her shoes and sort of directly sharing those sorts of experiences, and giving her a chance to shine within the framework and the struggles that she's dealing with, specifically. So yeah, it's and just getting to open this world up and like actually get off the escape pod and see a little more of this sci-fi future that me and the team that I get to work with have imagined.
Awesome. We're gonna have to get you on to chat about that as well at some point.
Right
now with that being said, guys, it is time for us to wrap up, but I do have two questions to leave off with. So first and foremost, I always love asking for a little bit of advice for anyone who is looking to start comics for the first time. So Jay, for you, we'll ask an art related question, and then Leland, for you, we'll ask a lettering type question. So Jay, for anyone looking to get into just the art side of things, just creating sequential art for the first time, what would be your biggest piece of advice to kind of help them get started?
I feel like there's really two. If you're just looking to make the art, the one piece of advice I think I would offer an artist is study photography. And the compositional aspects of it, the way lenses and compression work. Because it sort of translates itself to cinematography, and I feel like comics art is at least a second cousin to cinematography. You're telling stories with still imagery, which is why I say photography, because then you don't have to worry about the idea of movement and the way the camera moves in relation to actors' movements and those kinds of things. You've got this a solid grounding in a rule of thirds, like Leland mentioned, and other kind of compositional standbys. And I just found for myself, I hadn't intended it that way. I just got really heavy into photography several years ago. But as a result, my compositional strategies on the page changed dramatically and for the better.
Nice.
No, that is awesome. So Leland, for anyone looking to just get into lettering for the first time, what would be the biggest piece of advice you could offer? Maybe if you can go back to yourself, lettering for the first script, what would you offer to yourself?
Okay, I'm gonna give a quick answer and then a longer, more thoughtful answer. The quick answer is learn how to use vector programs. Pretty much all lettering, all digital lettering done today is done in vector programs like Adobe Illustrator, and vectors make art differently than pixels. The art is represented using formulas. If you know how to use pixel art, you don't inherently know how to use vector art. There's a learning curve on it, so start working on that. And then my thoughtful answer is read comics made by writer, artist, letterer, creators, because they just work holistically, naturally, right? So read Bone by Jeff Smith, read some Bill Watterson. Who else do I love who does it all? David Rubin does amazing, he does his own lettering, and you know, like, yeah, he always plots these amazing paths through the page because he's thinking about how he can lead the eye with the lettering as he's composing the page. And I feel like, though, you know, great teams do the same thing, but it's so easy to be like, oh, this person's brilliant, and they come up with the story, they write, you know, they draw it and they letter it themselves, and it's all coming together at once. You can learn a lot from those creators, those auteurs.
Awesome advice. They're always appreciated. So last but not least, outside of creating, what are you two consuming? You know, TV shows, movies, books, comics. If you guys play video games, what games are you rocking?
Starting to work my way through Breath of the Wild and trying to talk my wife into letting me play Tears of the Kingdom. I'm not much of a gamer, but I did buy that one at Christmas time, and I've clocked maybe 4 hours on it in the last 6 months, so I'm not doing so good. But was rewatching The Batman last night, and as far as that, yeah, I've been going back through some, honestly, photography courses on LinkedIn Learning. I don't get to watch a lot. My 6-year-old dominates the TV, and I'm always drawing these days. So, but I've got actually, you know, I've got the Phillips Brubaker Follow Me Down, the latest Reckless book that came out last year that I didn't get in because I don't have a comic book store near me. It's plastic wrapped. It's downstairs. It's going on vacation with me, and I can't wait to read it.
Leland, what about you? What are you consuming outside of creating?
Oh, the newest book that I picked up that blew my mind was James Herron's Ultra Mega. I love that book. I love that book so much, and it's been a while. I'm like, he better put more of it out because that book is amazing. And yeah, I'm neck deep in Tears of the Kingdom, building contraptions with Link and exploring the sky, and that what a wonderful you know, I'm obsessed with the hero's journey, and with Legend of Zelda I get to live it. So yeah, that's the one I'm going hard on.
I've been doing the same. Got the little Link amiibo right here. Can't tell you how many things I built, and then for it just to fall off the cliff, and I just want to punch my TV. Like, let me build something and it not fall apart for just 2 seconds. Had to take a break though. Diablo 4 just dropped, so I've been putting some work into that as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But awesome chat, you two. I appreciate you both swinging by. Everyone who is watching, right there are the links to check these projects out and make them happen. Jay, Leland, if anyone is interested in grabbing you guys, you know, for a commission or getting you for any sort of interest on a project, what's the best way to contact you?
DM via Twitter. I'm at Schiekapedia on Twitter and Instagram. I also have a contact form on my website, www.jschieek.com. And that goes directly to my email. I get notified anytime anybody sends something. And it'd be nice to get something other than somebody offering to write a business blog from a scammer. I get a lot of it.
I'm Bjerg Leland on Twitter, and I've got a Linktree /Leland Writes. You can find all my stuff on there.
Awesome. Well, everyone who is watching, I hope you all have a fantastic night. Most importantly, guys, keep it geekly.